Good morning. I'd like to call the meeting to order of the CCB agenda, June 18th, 2026. I'd like to say welcome to everybody that's here today. And to start the meeting, we'll start off with the roll call.
Will do, Chair. Member Rath.
Present.
Member Mazarana.
Present.
Member Merritt.
Present.
Vice Chair Durrett. Absent. Chair Barry.
Present.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. So then we have a quorum. I'd like to begin with agenda item number 1, public comment. For the record, the board is not permitted to deliberate or act on any of these items raised during the public comment period, unless or until the subject of the public comment is included on an agenda as an item upon which action may be taken. Board members should refrain from commenting or responding to public comments. Additionally, please reserve any comment you may have regarding agenda item number 9, as we will hold a separate round of public comments specific to that item at that time the item is called. Also, any public comments will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Having said that, we will start with public comment. Any comments from the north?
Hello, Will Adler with Silver State Government Relations. I do have comments related to agenda item 9 as well, so I'll be back up here for that matter. Independent public comment, kind of in association with those regulatory uptakes, is the workshop functionally is divided into different sections based on the bills or the laws that are passed. SB 157 was passed last year and had its own independent workshops. I do know those regulations were sent on to LCB to get the review for the final regulations. I don't know if those have come back to the Cannabis Control Board or the staff of the board, or if the intent would be to include those regulations for the bill SB 157 in this greater regulatory package we're talking about in agenda item 9. But if that were the case, it might be good to delay or wait for the return of those LCB comments. I know, like I said, it was submitted to LCB, but I do not know if CCB has received back the regulatory comments for the specifically SB 157 or the lot size workshop that we've had previously. That's all, and I have a specific comment for section 9 of this agenda. But yes, that's a separate comment to this because I just need some clarity on, or would appreciate the board looking into that regulation stack, and if it could be added to this, or if that is the intent, if that comes back in time to add it to this greater packet. Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you. Thank you. And we will address that at that time. Any other comments from the north?
No other comment.
Thank you. Any public comments from the south? Yeah, we would please use a microphone and give us your name. Thank you.
My public comment may end up actually falling into some of it, but most of it is.
Can you start with your name, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
My name is Adora Williams. I am really here just to speak on the fact that in the cannabis industry, we see that agent cards have really seen no meaningful change, especially in the renewal set. So my suggestion is in going through some of the changes that are proposed, I see a lot of changes about financial availabilities for regulatory breaking, and we have seen no meaningful changes in the sense of how agent cards are charged. Many of us have spent many years in the industry and seen no advantage to it, despite the fact that we know that training and longevity is a key to a compliant facility. So all I was asking is the opportunity to look at changing the $150 renewal costs for agents who have been in the industry for multiple years, and in some cases up to 10 years.
Thank you. Good morning.
My name is Dr. Jensen. I'm here today to represent Talking Token, and also as a Nevada consumer and someone who believes that Nevada has the opportunity to become a national leader in cannabis transparency. For years, many consumers have advocated for cannabis that has been irradiated or remediated to be clearly labeled. We understand that is now a legislative matter, and because of that, we are no longer asking for a labeling mandate. We're asking for transparency. In fact, we've seen the market begin to respond. Some cultivators that do not use remediation or irradiation methods have voluntarily started informing their customers of practices by labeling their packages. That tells us there is genuine consumer interest in understanding how cannabis is produced. Rather than requiring businesses to place another label on every package, we're asking for a neutral, fact-based transparency system that gives consumers access to products' history and allows them to make informed decisions for themselves. Think of it as a Carfax for cannabis, or what I would call a cannabis fax. When purchasing a used vehicle, consumers can easily look up the history. They can see ownership changes, accidents, repairs, and other major events that may impact their buying decision. Why shouldn't cannabis consumers have the same access to similar information? Today, consumers can only see the final passing COA. What they don't see is the journey that the product took to get there. Did it pass on the first test? Did it fail microbial testing? Was it remediated? What method was used? Was it retested? How many times was it tested before it reached the store shelves? Consumers currently do not have any way of knowing. This isn't about anti-remediation, anti-irradiation, or anti-business. Businesses that legally use these methods should be able to continue operating within the rules. Consumers are simply asking for access to information so they can make a purchasing decision that aligns with their personal preferences. This system would also dramatically improve Nevada's recall process. If you've ever tried to look up a Nevada cannabis recall as a consumer, you quickly realize you need detective skills. Compare that to a food recall. Food recalls are simple, clear, and easy to understand. Consumers can quickly identify who manufactured the product, who packaged or white labeled the product photos, lot numbers, dates, why the product was recalled. The information is straightforward and accessible. Nevada cannabis recalls, however, can be difficult for consumers to navigate. Often consumers are left piecing together information from multiple sources without a clear understanding of whether they purchase an affected product. A cannabis fax system could also solve both problems. By scanning a QR code or another way for consumers to access it, they could access initial testing dates, whether the product passed or failed its initial test, the reason for any failure, whether a remediation occurred, the remediation process used, retest dates, final passing results, product release date, product photos, cultivator information, white label partner information, and recall history if applicable. This isn't about creating fear, it's about creating confidence. Transparency builds trust, and trust strengthens Nevada regulation cannabis market. Nevada has an opportunity to become a national leader in consumer protection and transparency. Consumers don't need less information, consumers need more information. A passing COA tells consumers a product is safe today. Cannabis Facts would tell consumers the entire story on how it got there. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Gerardo Gonzalez, and I'm from the Talking and Talking crew as well.
Can you turn your mic on? Hit the button down there.
Now? All right, cool. Sorry. My name is Gerardo Gonzalez. I'm from the Talking and Talking crew. I'm here today as someone who has spent years involved in the industry in Nevada's cannabis community through media, education, events, and outreach. I want to speak honestly about the growing disappointment many people feel towards the Cannabis Compliance Board, the industry, and more recently, lounges. As some know, the people of Nevada never voted for the members of the board. You were appointed into a position that hold enormous power in an entire industry, and with that power should come accountability to the businesses, the workers, the consumers, and most importantly, the community to help build the cannabis in the state. Right now, many people feel that the board is quicker to tax, fine, restrict, and shut things down than it is to help the industry grow. Some small businesses struggle, independent operators struggle, community organizations struggle, cannabis-friendly events face barriers, creative collaboration is discouraged, and unfortunately, the money is easy to take for taxes, but we cannot give back to charities and other events like that. Meanwhile, we are watching other states continue to advance while Nevada, one of the biggest tourism in the world, risks falling behind. In New York, the state has openly embraced cannabis markets, public education, community-based events, all as part of building a current and modern industry. Arizona just recently hosted the Lowrider Super Show, and with that, there was a cannabis space called the Boulevard, where brands were welcome to come and show off products to attendees that were 21 and over. Nobody is asking for reckless regulation removal. People are asking for balance. People are asking for leadership that helps Nevada move forward instead of standing still while other states move past us. CCB should CCB should not only be known for enforcement, it should also be known for helping create pathways for responsible growth, innovation, tourism, and community participation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more public comments from the South? All right, thank you for those comments. Now I'd like to move to the next item of business, agenda item number 2, the consent agenda. We have items A, B, and C on the consent agenda. Do any board members wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Hearing no requests, Chair moves to approve the consent agenda item number 2, items A, B, and C.
Member Rath, second.
Been moved in second that we approve agenda items A, B, and C on the consent agenda. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Oh, Chair, I just wanted to let the record reflect I'm here because I was a few minutes late. Thank you.
All right. Did you vote?
Yes, aye.
Okay, thank you. Right. We will move on to agenda item number 3. We have 2 matters. 3A, Clark NMSD LLC, status check and consideration of extension to submit transfer of interest application for D186 and prospective retail attached consumption lounge. And Clark Natural Medicinal Solutions LLC, status check and consideration of extension to submit transfer of interest for C165 and P108. If there are no objections from the board, I'd like to consider these 2 matters together. All right, do we have someone from staff who's prepared to speak on this matter?
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. For the record, this is Emily Navasco-Bordalove, Senior Deputy Attorney General, appearing as counsel for the CCB, to give background on the status checks for item 3 on today's agenda. Clark NMSD and Clark Naturals were both part of a global settlement in which was in front of the board previously. And one of the settlement terms was transfer of the licenses listed on the agenda. Both matters have been before the board on status checks on these transfers or extensions, which have been previously granted due to extenuating circumstances. The matters returned to the board today for a current status check on the transfers. And here today is counsel for respondents, Amanda Connor, to answer any questions and give a status report on the transfers. Thank you.
Did counsel give their name?
Emily Bordalove for the
Okay.
record.
I've been thoroughly told to make sure everybody says their name, so I'm trying to be obedient. Okay, thank you.
Appreciate that.
All right. Okay, is anyone present like to present support on these matters?
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Amanda Connor with the law firm of Connor & Connor on behalf of Clark NMSD LLC and Clark Natural. I am here to provide a status update on both of these. As Ms. Bordalove mentioned, these are subject to a global settlement agreement, and one of the terms was to submit transfers of interest. If you may recall, we were here prior on status updates. Clark Natural did submit a transfer of interest, but unfortunately, due to circumstances outside their control, namely the proposed buyer becoming unresponsive and not cooperating with the CCB, that transfer was later withdrawn and approved. The withdrawal was approved by the board. Clark NMSD has been actively working to find a buyer as well. And as you may recall, at the last status check hearing, they entered into a marketing agreement with the receiver for CW Nevada to market all of these licenses for sale. That marketing agreement was approved by the court, and my understanding is the process for that proposed sell has started. People have expressed interest in the licenses, and it is my understanding that the receiver intends to open up a bidding process in July for these licenses. And subsequently after that, it would have to go to the court for approval, assuming a bid is accepted. And then the transfers of interest would be submitted thereafter. So there is a process in place. The company is actively working to try to find buyers to fulfill the terms of the settlement agreement, but additional time is needed. So my clients would kindly request an additional extension and proposes to come back for a status check. And perhaps in the interim, as mentioned on the prior status check, we would be willing to provide written updates to the board in the interim. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments from the board?
Member Rath, this seems to be moving along, so I think it would be appropriate to grant the extension with status updates from licensee.
Who do we just hear from?
Member Rath. Sorry.
So good. Any other comments? Member Baer, if there are no other comments from the board, I move to approve item 3A, Clark NMSD LLC, and 3B, Clark Natural Medicinal Solutions for extensions to submit applications for transfers of the applicable licenses. I further move to extend the status check for both items to the December 17th board meeting, and that respondent submit written status reports to the board on August 3rd of 2026, October 5th of 2026, and December 7th of 2026, addressing the status of the transfers. On submissions of the TOI applications for each license, any remaining status report deadlines in the December status check relating to that license shall be deemed satisfied, and no further reports or status checks shall be required.
Member Mazzarano seconds that.
It's been moved in second to approve this agenda item. Are there any further questions or discussions? Motion carries and the extensions are granted with the conditions set forth in the motion.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go to agenda item number 4, 3-month status update. We now have agenda item number 4, which is update from conditional licensee TRN VP 098 LLC. This item is agendized for discussion only. Is someone here from TRNV to speak on this matter, sir? So I turn it over to you.
Good morning, Chair Barry and members of the board. I'm Shane Terry from TRNV P098. And to give you a little bit of history on, this is a Lander County provisional dispensary retail license, adult use. In January of 2025, Lander County passed their zoning ordinance. And then in August of 2025, there was a confirmation hearing on their licensing fee structure. Since then, it's been a little bit challenging to find decent retail locations there, but we have found a location, entered an LOI with the landlord. It's a ground up build, so we're still working on trying to figure out what the landlord needs to bring utilities there to the site. We also have a backup site that is potentially more interesting and could expedite the timeline, but that one is conditional on a third party unaffiliated to us purchasing the building and then leasing it back to us. So that timeline's a little bit out of our control, but what I can update you on now is we do have an executed LOI. We do intend to move forward on the license. I understand that this is for discussion purposes only, so there's not going to be a decision, but what I would ask is, as we start moving forward on this process, there is a little bit of concern on our investor side that we would start a long-term development process with the ground-up construction and not get the extension. So what I would like to request or discuss for a future hearing would be for us to come back with another check-in in the next couple months and maybe get some confirmation that we've got enough runway and a green light to move forward. And I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you. So just confirming you want to come back to the August CCB meeting with an update.
Yes, sir. I think that would work out fine.
Thank you. Any questions for TRV and from the board?
Member Mazzarano would like to ask, can you tell us where these locations might be, or are they secret?
They're within the area of Battle Mountain. As far as the actual addresses, we would kind of, because they're we have two of them up in the air at the same time, we'd prefer to finish negotiating the first one and see what we can do with it before disclosing what the second location is.
Member Rath, they're both in the Battle Mountain area?
In the vicinity, yes. It's really in Lander County, the only viable area with access to the freeway that would allow us to have a pretty significant distribution reach to northern Nevada. But yeah, that's the area that we're looking in.
And just to comment, it seems that you are moving along now.
We intend to, correct. It's been some active conversations, even outside the retail part with some other potential partnerships out there.
I mean, in my opinion, as a single board member, as long as you're making progress, I mean, and there's a legitimate need for an extension, I personally don't see an issue there. I think we would like another status check. Is August appropriate, or would it be better to put the status check in October? You know better than I do what your progress
I
is.
think honestly, I think August would work out. We will have a better idea, and at that point, what I would be asking for is just confirmation that the license, which historically I don't see why it would be, but I would hate to see the license revoked in December when we're halfway through construction.
Understood. All right. I mean, I would be agreeable to putting this on the August agenda.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the board? Okay, so duly noted, we will have this on the August agenda for an update. Member Berry.
Thank you, sir, and board.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. This matter was set for discussion only, so we can move on to agenda item number 5. Agenda item number 5 is a request for approval of management services agreement between Las Vegas Wellness and Compassion LLC and Sunset Investment Facility. Is anyone from staff prepared to speak on this matter?
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Rachel Branner for the record. Item 5A is a management services agreement, or MSA, number 26-1, submitted by Las Vegas Wellness and Compassion, which requests approval of the relationship between itself and Sunset Investment Facility so that Sunset Investment may participate in Las Vegas Wellness and Compassion's production operations while the parties finalize a transfer of interest request and that TOI's subsequent suitability investigation. The MSA stipulates that while Las Vegas Wellness and Compassion will retain ultimate control and authority over its operations, Sunset Investment will be permitted to provide the following services: business consulting, accounting, administrative, technological, financial, construction, and related services for operations. At this time, no areas of concern have been identified which would prevent CCB staff from recommending approval of the relationship between Las Vegas Wellness and Compassion and Sunset Investment. I am available for any questions, and my understanding is that Alicia Ashcraft, Chad Wallace, and Michael Vellion are also available to address any questions you may have. With that, Chair, I'll turn this item back to you.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to Alicia. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair General Berry, members of the board, Executive Director Miles, Alicia Ashcraft. On behalf of the applicant, with me is Mike Villion of Sunset Investment Facility. I believe also Chad Wallace of Las Vegas Wellness and Compassion was going to be joining by Zoom. We're happy to answer any questions you may have. As Chief Branner said, this is pretty straightforward interim management services agreement pending the negotiation and submission of a transfer of interest for this facility. I would like to just take a moment to thank investigator Dana Lauren, who we worked with on this MSA. Always a pleasure to work with Dana. So thank her for that. But again, happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right. Thank you. Any comments from the board? Okay, hearing none, I move to approve the requested MSA and relationship between Sunset and LV Wellness.
Member Rath, second.
I moved in second that we approve agenda item number 5. Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item approved.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
We now have agenda item 6A, TOI for Libra Wellness, LLC, selling ownership of C149 MPO 94 to Wellness Growth Capital, LLC. Someone from staff prepared to speak on this matter?
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. Rachel Branner for the record. Today I'll be presenting item 6, which consists of 4 transfer of interest or TOI requests. Item A is a TOI request number 25-7 submitted by Libra Wellness Center, or Libra, requesting approval to transfer 100% of its cannabis cultivation and production licenses to NRHCJ LLC, a wholly owned subsidiary of Wellness Group Capital LLC, or Wellness. The request arises from Libra's default on a loan made by Wellness in 2020. Wellness, as a creditor, negotiated an agreement under which Libra transfers its cannabis licenses and associated collateral to Wellness's subsidiary in full satisfaction of the outstanding debt. This agreement was approved by a majority of Libra owners as required pursuant to Libra's operating agreement. Please note that neither Wellness nor its subsidiary NRHCJ have submitted waiver requests. At this time, no areas of concern have been identified, which would prevent CCB staff from recommending approval of the requested TOIs. While there are no areas of concern, I understand that several minority members of Libra may have some concerns related to this transaction. Their written comments have been provided for your review. I am available for any questions, and my understanding is Adam Fulton, Scott McManus, Robert Benson, Brian Hardy, Eric Nord, and several minority shareholders are available to answer any questions you may have as well. With that, Chair, I'll turn this item back to you.
Thank you. All right. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair and members of the board. Adam Fulton on behalf of Libra. And I have with me today Blake Bias, and Eric Nord is online right now, manager of Libra. Mr. Hardy was unable to attend today due to a family issue that came up, and so I will be handling this matter today. Again, would like to thank staff for working with us through this. As always, they do a great job for us. And this is another good example of parties coming together instead of filing lawsuits and moving to have receivers appointed and trying to, have big issues to come to a resolution and to transfer assets and then be done with it. So appreciate the parties and everyone working together to get this done. Unless you have any questions, it's pretty straightforward.
Thank you. Any other speakers? You good? Okay, thank you. This time I'll turn it over to any comments from the board or questions.
Member Rath. Chief Branner, you've had a chance to look at the operating agreement. Did you see any issues with proceeding on this transfer?
Rachel Branner for the record. No, I did not.
Mr. Fulton, did you have any comment on the request by the minority owners?
No, there's no comment on it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? This time, I move to approve the requested transfer of interest for Libra Wellness Center LLC, selling ownership of C149 and PO94. Oh,
Chair,
I'm sorry, I missed it. Yeah, I apologize. I did not see you. So go ahead, sir.
Thank you. I apologize there. I just want to make a statement. Chair, members of the Nevada Cannabis Compliance Board, my name is Jesse McCrae. I'm actually one of the co-founders of Libra Wellness Center. I'm appearing on behalf of myself and a group of 10 minority owners of Libra Wellness Center concerning the transfer of interest 2500007. We respectfully request the board continue this matter for a limited period to allow additional review of the recently discovered information and to allow minority owners the opportunity to complete retention of Nevada counsel. This request is not made for the purpose of delay, rather it is based upon significant issues that remain unresolved regarding the proposed transfer. First, the proposed transfer is admittedly an affiliated party transaction. Based upon documents provided by majority owners Eric Nord, Scott McManus, and Robert Benson, they either have ownership and or control positions across all of the entities involved in this matter. Not only Libra Wellness Center, but Wellness Growth Capital LLC, the secured creditor, NRHCJ LLC, the proposed transferee, and Global Biolabs LLC, the landlord and owner of the cultivation facility. The resulting overlap, the same three owners of managing members of all three organizations, results in significant questions regarding independence, fairness, and adequacy of the process used to approve and structure the proposed transfer. Second, Council has identified questions regarding compliance with provisions of the operating agreement governing affiliate party transactions, which is what this is, including requirements relating to arm's length dealings and member approval, neither of which have been satisfied. Third, no independent valuation, appraisal, fairness opinion, or other independent assessment of value has been produced. The central premise supporting the transfer is that Libra's debt exceeds the value of its assets, and that minority equity therefore has no value, yet no independent valuation has been provided to support that conclusion. Fourth, significant questions remain regarding the debt that forms the basis of the proposed transfer, including the amount, authorization, documentation, and use of certain indebtedness, as well as the fact that the loan proceeds were actually used for improvements to the facilities that are owned by Global Biolabs LLC, the same owners that are requesting transfer of the equity. Fifth, minority owners did not receive substantial portions of the relevant transaction documents until May 18th. Since that time, minority owners have been reviewing the materials and consulting with Nevada Council regarding the rights and implications of the proposed transaction. Sixth, Council has identified multiple issues requiring additional investigation, including affiliate transaction issues, fiduciary duty concerns, valuation concerns, ownership issues, and questions relating to the debt structure underlying the proposed transfer. The minorities, to be clear, the minority owners are not asking the board to reject the transaction today. We are only asking that the board allow sufficient time for these issues to be reviewed before a final decision is made. A short continuance would allow council to complete their investigation, allow additional information to be exchanged, and provide the board with a more complete record on which to base its decision. More importantly, no meaningful prejudice would result from this continuance. By contrast, approval of the transaction before these issues have been fully evaluated could permanently affect the rights of the minority owners and materially alter the ownership structure associated with these licenses. For these reasons, we respectfully request that the board continue consideration of TOI 2500007 to a later board meeting. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your comments. This is Member Berry, and when you refer to council, who are you referring to?
Are you asking me?
Yes, sir.
We're in the process of retaining counsel. We're talking to a couple different attorneys, and so we haven't officially retained the counsel yet, and so we're trying to wrap up on that right now with the other 9 minority owners. But we will be retaining.
Thank you. Any questions or discussions from the board?
Member Rath, I just wanted to see if you had, Mr. Fulton, you had any response.
Yeah, sure. So we already postponed this. The documentation was provided to the minority owners. We provided that evidence to the CCB. The documentation was provided. We gave the minority owners additional time already. If they wanted to do something, they could have. They haven't done it. I haven't been contacted by any counsel from Mr. McCrae. As the CCB is aware, this was done according to the operating agreement, and there's no basis to not transfer the licenses today. So again, if there's no court order, there's no active case. Frankly, if we don't transfer today, there may be a problem with the secured party moving forward in another direction. So we do need this to get transferred today. And again, there's no legal basis or any other reason not to transfer it.
Member Rath, thank you, Mr. Fulton. And just to confirm, the majority has approved this transfer, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions or comments from the board?
Member Rath, it appears appropriate to me. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, my question was just when notice was provided. Sorry.
Can you repeat your question?
Sorry about that. Member Drett, when was notice provided to the minor parties?
If you mean when the documents were provided, that was on it was 1 month ago that we finally received the documentation, despite multiple requests for that documentation.
Thank you.
So the minority owners were provided notice of this transfer before that point. I don't have the exact date, but that information was provided to the CCB in multiple affidavits. Information was provided multiple times, and manager Eric Nord provided affidavits to the CCB of the dates and times that all the information was provided. In fact, the CCB staff actually requested that we provide all the information to the minority owners, which was provided.
Can you just give your name so we can?
Oh, sorry, Adam Fulton for the record, council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Member Rath, just a comment. It appears the majority has approved and staff has looked at the operating agreement, but I would be comfortable going forward.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Member Berry, I move to approve the requested transfer of interest for Library Wellness Center LLC, selling ownership of C149 and P094 to Wellness Growth Capital LLC in our HCJ LLC.
Member Rath, second.
It's been moved in second that we approve this agenda item, requesting transfer of interest. Any questions or discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We now have agenda item 6B, a transfer of interest for Nevada Natural Medicines LLC and Nevada Holistic Medicine LLC, completing an internal transfer of interest. We have anyone from staff prepared to speak on this agenda item?
Thank you, Chair. Rachel Brenner for the record. Item B is a multiple TOI request, numbers 25-15, 25-16, and 25-36, submitted by Nevada Natural Medicines and Nevada Holistic Medicine, which requests approval for internal ownership changes and the subsequent removal of 2 members. Nevada Natural Medicines and Nevada Holistic Medicine are related entities with near identical ownership structures. The requested transfers address Richard Crichton and Otto Morita's desire to transfer their ownership in Nevada Natural and Nevada Holistic to the Glenwood Trust, which is controlled by existing owner Scott Sibley. Additionally, both Nevada Natural Medicines and Nevada Holistic Medicine have requested waivers of NCCR 5.110 pursuant to NCCR 5.112. No areas of concern have been identified which would prevent CCB staff from recommending approval of the requested transfers of interest. I am available for any questions, and my understanding is Scott Sibley, Ryan Welch, Richard Crichton, and Otto Morita are available for any questions you may have as well. With that, Chair, I'll turn this item back to you.
Thank you. And I will turn over to you this time, sir.
Good morning, Scott Sibley on behalf of the transfer. So we're just consolidating our ownership group, trying to get it down to less people and run a more streamlined operation.
Thank you. Is there anybody else here prepared to speak on this matter?
No.
All right. Thank you. All right. Turn over to the board at this time. Any questions or discussions? Hearing none, I move to approve the requested transfer of interest for Nevada Natural Medicines LLC and Nevada Holistic Medicine LLC in completing an internal transfer of interest.
Member Merritt, second.
All right, it's been moved second that we approve this agenda item. Are there any questions or discussions? Hearing none, motion is approved and passes. Oh, I'm sorry.
We have to vote.
I'm sorry. Call for the vote. Call for the vote. I was just making sure everybody's paying attention. All right. Okay. All right. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We now have agenda item 6C, a transfer of interest for Clear River LLC, transferring partial ownership in C097, D087, D1008, RD230, RD231, P047, T0202 KJ Universal Real Estate Investments LLC. Anyone from staff prepared to speak?
Thank you, Chair. Rachel Branner for the record. Item C is a TOI request 25-42 submitted by Clear River seeking approval for the transfer of 40% ownership to KAJ Universal Real Estate Investments, LLC, or KAJ. KAJ is the current owner of the real estate that Clear River's establishments operate in. While the purchase price for the proposed transaction is only a nominal amount, there is a possibility of future shared ownership in the real estate between KAJ and Clear River. Additionally, Clear River has requested a waiver of NCCR 5.110 pursuant to NCCR 5.112. At this time, no areas of concern have been identified which would prevent CCB staff from recommending approval of the requested transfer of interest. I am available for any questions, and my understanding is that Amanda Connor, Robert Black Sr., and Kevin Hooks are available to address any questions you may have as well. With that, Chair, I'll turn this item back to you.
Thank you. All right, turn over to you, Ms. Connor. Start it off.
Good morning, Amanda Connor with the law firm of Connor and Connor on behalf of Clear River LLC. With me today is Mr. Black Sr., current member of Clear River LLC, and Mr. Kevin Hooks, the proposed member through his company KAJ Investments LLC. I believe also online is Cammie Perkins, Mr. Hooks' counsel, if there are questions. As Rachel pointed out, this is a fairly straightforward transaction to bring in Mr. Hooks as a member of the company, and the company is requesting a 5112 waiver. I'm available to answer any questions, as are the others who are here with me this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak? Okay. Thank you. All right. All right. This time I'll turn to the board for any questions or discussions. Okay. Mr. Berry, I move to approve the requested transfer of interest for Clear River LLC to transfer partial ownership as outlined in the request in C097, D087, D1008, or D230, or D231, P047, T020 to KJ Universal Real Estate Investments LLC.
Member Merritt, I'll second.
Sorry to interrupt, but there is a waiver request as well.
There is a waiver request as well. Can I amend my motion to include the waiver request? Make sure that legal is good with that, me amending the motion to include the waiver request as well.
Stephanie Goodman, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, did we have the second from Member Merritt? Okay, it's been moved in second that we approve this agenda item. Any questions or discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries with the additional amendment of a waiver in there.
Thank you, and thank you to Investigator Dean. She did a great job working on this transfer. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair, can I make a comment related to this licensee?
The what?
The licensee that's on the agenda right now, Clear River. I just wanted to comment that the last time they were on the agenda, they had reached out to me afterward, and we had a discussion that I think was really informative, and I wanted to share it at some point. Now's not the time, but I know they also reached out to the agency, and I just wanted them to know that I had thought about it and will raise the issue later.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Copy all. We now have agenda item 6D, a transfer of interest for SSAC Corporation, SAC D1 LLC, transferring ownership of D06025 Seed Investments LLC. Okay. This time I'll turn over to staff for any to speak up.
Thank you, Chair. Rachel Branner for the record. Item D is a TOI request 25-10 submitted by SSAC Corporation on behalf of its subsidiary SSAC D1 to return dispensary license D060 back to its original owner, 5 Seed Investments. This request stems from due to past due payments on the purchase loan for the dispensary license, which has been non-operational since August 2024. Additionally, while 5-Seat previously submitted an amended TOI to sell the subject license to a new entity, 5-Seat has subsequently requested a withdrawal of that amended TOI. At this time, no areas of concern have been identified which would prevent CCB staff from recommending approval of the requested transfer of the dispensary license D060 back to 5-Seat. I am available for any questions, and my understanding is that Jeanette Yabarin, Patricia Clark, Stefan Holler, and Patrick Spidel are also available to address any questions you may have as well. With that, Chair, I'll turn this item back to you.
Thank you. Good morning again.
Good morning, Adam Fulton on behalf of SSAC Court. I'm here attending on behalf of Alexander Holler and Patrick Spidel. Thank you.
Is there anybody else going to be speaking on this matter?
I believe 5-Seat is in attendance. I don't know if they're up north, so I don't know if they're in. I anticipated them being on up north. Apparently not. Apparently it's just me. Sounds good. Again, like to thank the staff and everyone working through this on this. Another great example of parties just working out their differences and coming to resolution on things. So unless there's any questions, I would appreciate the approval. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to turn to the board for any questions or discussions. All right, hearing none, I move to approve the requested transfer of interest for SSAC Corporation, SSAC D1 LLC, to transfer ownership of D060 to 5-Seat Investments LLC.
Member Rath, second.
It's moved in second that we accept this motion. Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes and carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
This time we have agenda item number 7, and pursuant to NRS 241-030-1, we have a request to reapply, and there's a request for this to be a closed session. And yeah, is Mr. Adamson here? Okay.
Recording stopped.
Okay, welcome back and thank everybody for your patience. We're now back in open session. We now have agenda item number 8, review of waiver for Trevor Giles Adamson pursuant to NRS 67.
Chair, I'm sorry. Hi. Could you hold off a little bit? They haven't confirmed that we're back to broadcasting and being public.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Bye.
Okay, we're back up. Thank you.
Can't remember what I said now. Okay. Okay, welcome back. Thank you for your patience. We're now back in open session. We have agenda item number 8, review of waiver for Trevor Adamson pursuant to NRS 678B.633. When discussing this matter, please refrain from discussing any specific matters from the closed session that was held earlier. So having said that, going back to item number 8, do I turn it back over to staff for any comments? All right. And I'll just go with the motion then. So having said this, I move to keep the previously granted exemption in place, but with the following additional restrictions: that a medical card be produced within the next 30 days and a letter from your employer. That's the motion.
Member Mazarano seconds that.
Okay. It's been moved in second that this motion be accepted. Any questions or discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Adamson. Okay. Everybody's been waiting for now. All right. I will go down now to agenda item number 9, notice of intent to adopt permanent regulations as contained in LCB file number R152-24. This item is a continuation of the rulemaking first considered at the November 20th, 2025 board meeting under LCB file number R152-24, which was subsequently revised and reissued as R152-24RP1 and published in the Nevada Register on May 28th, 2026. The board will consider possible actions to adopt, amend, and or repeal the revised proposed regulations affecting multiple regulatory provisions, including definitions, licensing, enforcement, discipline, cultivation, production, laboratory standards and practices, testing, packaging, and labeling, distribution, and consumption lounges. The full text is posted and available on the board's website. At this time, I will turn this over to our director, Mr. Miles.
Chair, I would like to make Member Rath like to make one disclosure, and that is that I did work on certain sections of these regulations while I was with the AG's office. However, I don't see a legal basis for me to abstain from voting on the matter, so I do intend to vote on the matter.
Thank you. No, so noted for the record.
Thank you.
I was going to go into a discussion on the NCCRs and the NACs, but I think I'm going to wait actually until the end to give that briefing. Deputy Attorney General Bordelot is going to give you a background on this. I just want a reminder to everyone, this is the regs being approved from the 23 session. All right, these are 3 years old and working, has nothing to do with came out of the 25 session, has nothing to do with SB 157, is solely and completely just regs that were worked on back in from the 23 session and were workshopped back in, I think, the end of 23 and 24. So.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Emily Bordelov, Senior Deputy Attorney General and Counsel for the CCB. Before beginning discussion on R152-24RP1, the file before you today, I wanted to provide a brief overview of how we arrived at this version before you today. The process began in 2023 when legislation changed the procedure of how the board adopts regulation. That change required the board to submit its proposed regulations to the Legislative Council Bureau for review and revision. This is the first regulatory package submitted through this procedure. This package is based on the regulatory amendments the board developed and workshopped in response to the 2023 legislative session. In June 2024, the board submitted its initial draft language to LCB for review. July 2025, LCB returned its proposed draft. CCB staff reviewed that draft and identified areas where the language did not fully reflect the intended meaning in the original initial draft and made additional revisions. That resulting file and revisions were presented to the board at the November 2025 board meeting. At that meeting, stakeholders raised concerns regarding portions of Chapter 11 related to laboratory testing and including whether statutory changes from the 2025 session were reflected in this language. In response, the board voted to continue its review of Chapter 11 while moving forward with the remainder of the proposed regulations. Following the November meeting, CCB staff continued discussions with stakeholders and worked with the LCB on proposed revisions to Chapter 11. During that process, LCB advised that the regulations could not proceed in separate parts and would need to be considered together as a single regulatory package. CCB staff resubmitted the language from the November meeting along with the additional changes for Chapter 11 that were discussed with industry. LCB returned its revised version of that submission, and that is the file package before you today. As noted by Executive Director Miles, this file was the 2023 session. It's not intended to serve as the board's complete implementation of legislation enacted during the 2025 session. It does not include changes workshop during the 2025-2026 workshops. Those are under packages R103-26 and R104-26. What's before you today is R152-24 RP1. And with that, I submit the matter back to the Deputy Director Gilpin.
Go ahead and give a summary about the regs. Sorry.
Thank you. Steve Grover for the record. I'll briefly go through each section of LCB file number R152.24. Just as a reminder, these have been workshopped in 2023 and 2024 and are now in front of the board for adoption. Section 2 through 6 define certain terms for purposes of the regulations adopted by the board. Section 7 establishes the method to compute any period of time set forth in the regulations governing cannabis. Section 9 deletes the language, signage of the business name, company logos, devices, lights, figures, paintings, drawings, brandings, or plaques that are used in the design on the cannabis establishment or are not subject to the requirements of NCCR 12.070 1 through 3. However, each of the foregoing items must comply. Sections 10 through 12, 60, 76 through 78, 86, and 87 revise various provisions to specify that certain references to edible cannabis products apply only to adult use edible cannabis products. Sections 23, 24, 31 through 37, and 89 revise the procedures by which disciplinary action may be taken against a licensee or registrant. Section 14, 15, and 25 through 29 establish new categories of violations and our graduated penalties, and also revise the categories and presumptive graduated penalties set forth in existing regulations. Sections 41, 46, and 59 make conforming changes to reflect the recategorization of certain violations. Section 16 deals with consent or settlement agreement, including proceedings for its approval, authorization to enter a stay of the proceedings, and sets forth certain requirements for the contents. Section 17 prescribes the contents for a petition. A person who has been convicted of an excluded felony offense may submit to the board to obtain an exemption and establishes the process by which the board will consider the petition. Section 18 authorizes the board to issue a notice of violation and an order to seize unlicensed cannabis activity to any person who engages in certain activities and taken certain additional actions against after the issuance of such notice and order. Section 19 authorizes the board to initiate an administrative proceedings to impose certain civil penalties if a person who has received such notice and order continues to engage in such activities. Section 22 sets forth certain procedures for the imposition of such administrative fine, such as an administrative fine. Section 21 authorizes the board to bring a civil action against a person who engages in unlicensed cannabis activities to recover a civil penalty of not more than $50,000 and requests the Attorney General bring an action to enjoin the activities. Section 20 authorizes the board to issue a summons or subpoena in connection with an investigation of unlicensed cannabis activities in accordance with the existing law. Section 30 changes the time period within which a cannabis establishment becomes aware of an imminent health hazard, must report the hazard to the board or board agents from within 2 hours of the discovery of the hazard or as soon as practicable after ensuring the safety of all persons in the vicinity of the hazard. Section 38 revises the procedures by which a licensee, registrant, or applicant for a license or registration card may obtain a determination or advisory opinion from the board by filing a petition for declaratory ruling. Section 39 revises the procedures by which an interested party may file a petition with the board to request the adoption, amendment, or repeal of a regulation. Section 40 requires the board to assign a cannabis establishment ID number to a cannabis establishment when the board approves the application for the license of a cannabis establishment. Section 43 requires a board agent to enter and inspect each building or the premises of a cannabis establishment testing laboratory at least biennially and conduct certain other inspections as necessary between biennial inspections. Section 42 removes an obsolete reference to Section 43. Section 44 requires a cannabis establishment to notify the board of a closure within 24 hours if the cannabis establishment closes temporarily due to circumstances which make operational impractical or impossible. Section 45 eliminates the $75 fee required by existing regulation to accompany a request for a replacement cannabis establishment agent registration card. Section 47 and 54 revise the maximum amount of cannabis and cannabis products that a person is authorized to possess and that cannabis sales facility is authorized to sell in a single transaction. Section 48 revises how costs incurred by the board for an investigation or charge to a licensee establishes the hourly rate the board will charge for certain investigations and provide the process for charging and disputing such costs. Section 49 requires a cannabis establishment to notify the board or board agent in writing within 24 hours after receipt of a notice of eviction. Section 50 requires a cannabis establishment to report to the appropriate board agent and to conduct an investigation within 24 hours after discovering a significant variance in inventory. Section 51 specifies that a cannabis establishment is required to ensure that all mature cannabis plants, packages containing cannabis, and batches of immature plants contain 150 plants or less, are properly tagged and maintained in compliance with the requirements of the seed-to-sale tracking system. The board is also authorized to quarantine any cannabis or cannabis products which is not properly tagged or which the board has reasonable cause to believe violates the provisions of existing law or regulations governing cannabis. Section 52 revises various requirements concerning the security of a cannabis establishment. Section 53 requires a cannabis sales facility to post signs containing certain statements and warnings in prominent locations inside the facility and at any customer entrance and drive-through window. Section 55 revises provisions governing the products that a cannabis sales facility is authorized to sell and prohibited from selling. Section 58 requires a cannabis cultivation facility to create a soil amendment report disclosing certain information related to soil amendments, fertilizers, pesticides, and other crop production aids applied to the growing medium or cannabis plants during production and provide the report to a cannabis sales facility within each lot of usable cannabis provided to the cannabis sales facility. Section 56 requires a cannabis sales facility to provide a copy of a soil amendment report upon request by a customer or consumer. Section 57 revises limitations for the maximum amount of cannabis or cannabis products that a cannabis sales facility is authorized to deliver to consumers at any one time or in one calendar day. Section 57 provides that a report of loss or theft must be made immediately to the appropriate law enforcement agency and after any risk to public safety has been abated to the board. We're getting there. Section 61 requires a cannabis cultivation facility retain at least one person who is a private applicator as defined by existing law. Section 62 adopts by reference the standards and guidelines which Section 66 requires a cannabis independent testing laboratory must comply with only as required by specific regulation. Section 63 specifies certain requirements the scientific director employed by a cannabis independent testing laboratory must abide by and the appointment of an interim director when warranted. Section 64 requires a cannabis independent testing laboratory to implement a safety program which includes certain guidelines. Section 65 of this regulation requires a cannabis independent testing laboratory to provide the report and accreditation certificate to the board within 3 business days after the receipt of the documents from the accrediting organization. Section 66 revises the list of standards and guidelines which each independent testing laboratory must comply with only as specified by specific regulation. Section 66 additionally requires a quality control and quality assurance program maintained by a cannabis independent testing laboratory to 1, include a written ethics policy, 2, provide training to all staff of the laboratory on the written ethics policy, and 3, require all staff of the laboratory to sign a statement which attests that the staff member will adhere to the written ethics policy. And also revises the list of testing methods that a cannabis independent testing laboratory is authorized to use. Section 67 requires each cannabis independent testing laboratory and ensure the positive identification of cannabis or cannabis product by verifying the accuracy of certain information and matching it to information documented in the seed-to-cell tracking system, and adhere to certain chain of custody and sample identification requirements. Section 68 revises various requirements and procedures for the testing conducted by the Cannabis Independent Testing Laboratory for research and development purposes. Section 69 sets forth the quality assurance test required for usable cannabis, which is destined for extraction, and revises the quality assurance test required for wet cannabis, which is destined for extraction, and changes the required sampling size from 10 to 20 grams, revises various procedures and requirements for the collection and disposal of samples of cannabis and cannabis products for testing, and for the provisions of certificate of analysis by the Cannabis Establishment Testing Laboratory. Section 70 revises the circumstances under which a cannabis independent testing laboratory is required to verify the homogeneity of the potency of an edible cannabis product. Section 71 requires a cannabis independent testing laboratory to establish limits of detection for every pesticide analyzed by the laboratory and at what level pesticide residue analysis is considered to be failed. 72 revises procedures and requirements for the collection and disposal of samples of cannabis and cannabis products for testing and for the provisions of certificate of analysis by a cannabis independent testing laboratory. Section 73 requires a board agent to pre-approve any process for the post-harvest treatment or remediation of cannabis and a cannabis establishment to maintain and provide to a cannabis independent testing laboratory that collects the sample for testing, documentation of post-harvest treatment or remediation lots or production runs. Section 74 revises requirements concerning the responsibility for the costs associated with the board requested sample of cannabis or cannabis production tested at an independent testing laboratory, and the board directed screening and testing on that sample. Section 75 requires a cannabis cultivation facility or cannabis production facility to disclose to a cannabis sales facility or cannabis consumption lounge any process used for the purpose of reducing or eradicating microbial contamination. Requires a cannabis sales facility or cannabis consumption lounge to provide that information upon request to the consumer, and to post a notice that that type of information is available upon request. Section 77 revises, reorganizes, and sets forth additional requirements for the packaging of cannabis and cannabis products sold by a cannabis establishment. Sections 79 through 82 revise labeling requirements for cannabis cultivation facilities, cannabis production facilities, cannabis sales facilities, and cannabis consumption lounges. Section 76 removes provisions concerning the maximum amount of cannabis and maximum amount of THC that may be contained in an adult use cannabis product sold in a single, and sets forth the maximum amount of THC that may be contained in an adult use cannabis products sold as a pill that is sold in a single package. Section 78 requires each individual serving of a medical edible cannabis product to be stamped or molded with the Nevada Universal Cannabis symbol. Section 83 requires that a cannabis sales facility and cannabis consumption lounge to provide a copy of the soil amendment report and the certificate of analysis from the Cannabis Independent Testing Laboratory to a consumer immediately. Section 83 revises the warnings that must be contained in a written or electronic notification provided for cannabis products sold at cannabis sales facilities and cannabis consumption lounges. Section 84 addresses cannabis establishment advertisements and reorganizes certain requirements. Warnings and advertisements are to be visible and legible, and advertisements which are posted inside a cannabis establishment are not subject to certain advertisement requirements and limitations. Section 85 increases the time frame in which a cannabis establishment agent transporting cannabis or cannabis products for an adult use cannabis distributor is required to report a motor vehicle crash, requires a cannabis establishment agent report to the board any unauthorized stop within 24 hours after the stop, and requires an adult use cannabis distributor to report to the board any loss or theft after any risk to public safety has been abated. Section 89 repeals the packaging requirement that cannabis or cannabis products treated with radiation must include statements and symbols indicating it has been treated with radiation. Section 89 additionally repeals an obsolete provision regarding the applicability of certain regulations of the board. And that's it.
Thank you. Any other comments from staff? All right. I would like to now open this matter up to public comment. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this matter? And just remember, we still have the 3-minute rule in effect. All right. Oh, starting, we'll start up north. Okay.
Hello, my comment should be a brief one. My name is Will Adler. I'm with Silver State Government Relations. There's just a little language change that might be crucial for some compliance going forward. To make it really explicit, I'll go to the exact section, but in section 72, sub 2A, 2, right? So 45 to 60, there's just a reference for ASTM adherence. So just the legal definition of adherence kind of means, using the entirety of or bonding to the entirety of ASTM standards. This kind of came up with the legislation on SB 157, and in that we actually chose to use the word align with ASTM standards because ASTM actually advises states to do that because it's hard to adhere with the whole of the ASTM standard and comply with sort of the variations between states. So just a small change, but one we would like to see is to actually change the term adhere with or adhere to align with would be great. Other than that, that's sort of the core of it, and there's plenty of other long drawn out discussions on this, as Director Mike Miles did indicate. So that's it, just sort of coming into compliance or the modern terminology around ASTM as we sort of put into law with SB 157. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any more comments from the north?
No more public comment in the north.
All right, thank you. Turn it over to the south.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, Chair, Executive Director Miles, and members of the board. My name is Lake Martin. I'm the Executive Director of the Nevada Cannabis Association, and we appreciate the extensive work that has gone into these proposed regulations. I just have a few sections to comment on today, and most of that is for the purpose of clarification. Section 55 allows dispensaries to sell branded merchandise. Through a drafting change after the initial version, branded merchandise became a subcategory of cannabis-related accessories. Cannabis-related accessories are prohibited from having fruit on them, and this impacts companies such as Wild, where fruit is a part of their branding. So my understanding from discussions with Director Miles and the Deputy Attorney General is that this was an inadvertent drafting change because removing fruit from branded merchandise was never workshopped. And the CCB is fixing the drafting in the next round of regs. We've seen that draft. I don't know why it couldn't be fixed here, but I wanted to clarify in the meantime that this section would not be enforced, that they would be able to continue to sell branded merchandise with fruit, because this wasn't intended. Again, this was an unintended drafting change as a result of putting branded merchandise under as a subcategory of cannabis-related accessories. I can pause there. I can move on. Thank you. Also, one of my licensees, one of our members pointed out, also in section 55, as used in the section branded merchandise, refers to branding of a cannabis sales facility. And this particular drafting would prevent vertically integrated companies from selling branded merchandise from their affiliated brands. And so they had suggested that this could be prevented by changing cannabis sales facility to either cannabis facility or cannabis establishment, so that the dispensary could sell branded merchandise of the brands that they have in store and not just of their own brand. Section 69 increases the sample testing size to 20 grams. So if the board's adoption of the 20-gram sample means that licensees can now test 15-pound lots with the 20-gram sample, then we don't have any objection. I don't know that that's the intention.
No, it's still, again, this has nothing to do with SB 157. The rules are still 5-pound lot sizes. This will just increase it to a 20-gram sample size.
Thank you, Director Miles. So our concern with that is that if the board approves this increase to 20-gram sample size, but doesn't correspondingly increase the 15-pound lot size, we're asking licensees to change their testing procedures now, while knowing that there are pending regulations that have been workshopped, have been drafted, and are in the final stages, which will again require licensees to change their testing procedures within the matter of a few months to a year. And so our request, this is costly to make this change just in the interim, knowing that we're going to change it again. And that's our concern. And that's why we would object to that section. We have objected to this section in the past. This is not new. And so we wanted to again raise that objection. Section 73 requires any process for the post-harvest treatment or remediation of cannabis to be pre-approved by a board agent. We wanted to clarify that pre-approval is a one-time approval of the particular treatment, and not saying that the same treatment needs to be approved every single time that it's used.
Yeah, that's correct, unless somehow you materially adjust the way you're treating.
Right, that makes sense. And also, we appreciate the board and staff's attention to the concerns we raised and the laboratories raised about adoption by reference of voluminous treaties and standards. My understanding that the language that's been included in Section 62 means that licensees and all of their employees are not expected to know the ins and outs of every outside treatise unless there's specific reference and regulation to a requirement that's spelled out in that treatise. We still believe that the best practice for compliance is to state in the regulation the requirements that need to be followed, but we appreciate CCB staff's attempt to reach a compromise. And that's all we have for comment at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Connor.
Good morning, Amanda Connor with the law firm of Connor & Connor. I appreciate that these regulations have been worked on for a very long time. As Ms. Bordelove indicated, these started in 2023 or early 2024. So we're 2 years in on these. But my concern is that we are adopting regulations today, some of which are directly conflicted by statute that was passed in the 2025 legislative session. Just want to give one example. Page 145, section 76 puts a packaging or limitation on capsules or pills not containing more than 800 milligrams of THC. That's directly conflicted with SB 168. And further was the guidance sent out by the CCB July 17th of 2025 saying that the limitation would be 1,000 milligrams. Thus, there are other examples in here. As Ms. Bordalove indicated, these regs do not consider the 2025 legislative session changes, which I understand, but I think there's a concern that it will cause confusion. How is a person operating in the industry or a consumer supposed to say, the board adopted these in June of 2026, but it actually isn't valid? I have to know this provision was, is no longer valid because of something that happened in 2025. We are adopting a full set and people have to know which to pick and choose to follow. I think that causes confusion. Thank you.
I don't disagree on the way it's set up. However, we're under the new APA process where now it's going to be years before the regs that we adopt, years prior in a session get approved. If you do have issues like that, please bring it up to us so we can send out guidance on what's actually being followed. Because we do, if it's spelled out in statute, that's what the law is. Regs cannot supersede what is spelled out in the statute. So if you have any issues with that, please send it to us. We'll send out guidance right away.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Good morning, yet again. Adam Fulton. I'm appearing on behalf of Digipath Labs, M&A & Associates, MVCAN Labs, RSR Analytical, ACE Analytical Laboratories, 374 Labs, and G3 Labs. 7 of the 8 laboratories in Nevada have supported the brief that was submitted with the executive summary. It's a lot of information to go through, and so I will do my best to be brief in some of the issues that the laboratories as an industry have with the proposed regulations. The first issue, and this was actually addressed surprisingly, and I love Will Adler. We actually agree with Will on one issue here, which is that those that know the history will laugh at that. But the section 62 sub 1 talks about, and I appreciate the LCB and people trying to accommodate the verbiage, but there's two fighting forces basically inside this sentence, and the labs have a lot of concern about this. The language adopts by reference. There's 36 standards, okay, that are being adopted in section 62, and 36 different regulations, over 6,900 pages of regulation that's being adopted from the scientific standpoint. And our scientific directors and scientists that run the laboratories in the state have a lot of concerns over the adoption of all these regulations, that then the question is, do we have to follow and enforce them? And I understand the CCB's position, and Director Miles and I have had many long conversations about this, which is the question of, if the language says it's complied with only as required by a specific regulation, then does that mean we have to follow all the standards? Do the labs have to follow all the standards as laid out in all those regulations? The problem we have is, even if 62, even if the CCB and hypothetically a court or the law says, okay, labs, you don't have to follow every single standard as identified per the language of 62.1, the problem is in section 66, it commands the labs to adhere to nearly all of the ASTM standards, AOAC methods, and other publications adopted by reference in section 62. Section 66 does not have a directive that limits the ability for the labs to not comply with these standards. And so that is a problem for us, because there's no direct regulation or oversight that allows us to work with the CCB to modify or adjust various regulatory scientific testing standards pursuant to the drafted language. We provided I won't spend a lot of time, but there was a contradiction table which we attached to the information that actually shows all the different contradictions between the various standards. Some of those were actually mentioned today by some of my other colleagues, but there are many contradictions that exist between the existing standards. And so if we're requiring the labs to follow these regulations where there's contradictions, there's no direction as to how to do that, because unfortunately the LCB took out the proposed language that we wanted to give the CCB and the agents the ability to actually give us direction on what to do. And so we had proposed language that allowed the CCB and your agents to then basically override some of these standards to say, yes, your scientific methods are allowed and acceptable. And for some reason, the LCB has directed you, the CCB, that you can't do that. And we disagree with that. And we would like you to be able to, as the CCB, to look at our scientific processes and procedures and to tell us, you know what, this may exceed the standard. This may be different than the standard, but we approve it because you've given us a scientific backing and reasoning for your processes and procedures. And so we disagree with the LCB that you shouldn't be allowed to do that. And I know that, again, I understand, but that's the position the labs have. We want the ability to actually follow scientific standards that are direct and on point and that you can improve. The proposed language we would suggest in lieu of section 62.1 is that the following publications are incorporated by reference solely for the purposes of identification and availability. No provision of any publication listed in this section imposes any requirement upon a licensee or registrant, except to the extent that compliance with a specific publication or specific provision thereof is expressly required by another section of this chapter. And obviously would have to deal with section 66 as well. And again, the scope of the problem, members of the board and chair, is that we have thousands of contradictions in regulatory oversight here from a scientific standpoint that simply can't be complied with. I'll just give a couple of quick examples. The scope of materials ASTM D8334 applies only to harvested cannabis and hemp inflorescence and expressly excludes extract seeds, edibles, and topicals, which is in violation of our current drafted regulations and laws. The 15-pound limit under the ASTM standard, which we don't even have a 15-pound limit under our laws right now, but ASTM caps a batch at 15 pounds, and this creates a violation for exceeding applicable weight limits, but it never states what that standard is. Again, that's a contradiction. You have a sample mass requirement of taking 60 grams versus 20 grams under our statute, so the new regs require that. That's also a contradiction. I could go again. If you read the brief in the contradiction table, you'll see all the issues that exist there, and I won't take more time going through that. The other issue we have is, even though the LCB came back and said, hey, we want to issue the standards, even if you were to incorporate the standards, the way it reads right now is it's from a certain publication date, but it doesn't list the actual publication standard. So in this instance, it should be, if we were to incorporate it, it should be D8334, D8334 4M-20. The -20 matters because it specifies which publication the labs are actually having to follow, and that's required under our law. I mentioned it before, but we do believe that in addition to the changes I've talked about, that section 62, we should add the following: the listing of publication in this section or any subsequent section does not prohibit the board or appropriate board agent from approving an alternate method, procedure, standard, or practice when expressly authorized by this chapter, or when the board or board agent determines that the alternative is scientifically valid, fit for its intended purpose, and protective of public health and safety. I mean, it's an interesting, if you think about it, it's an interesting legal concept that the LCB is demanding you take, which is you are to regulate and oversee Nevada cannabis and its safety and fit for the intended public purpose. But then they're saying in the same breath, you can't have the ability to approve alternative methods, procedures, or things that are scientifically viable. It doesn't make any sense. So again, we would request that we push back on the LCB and request that you guys have the authority to actually approve these scientific processes and methods and standards, which frankly are better than most of the published standards they're referencing anyway. The labs have better processes and procedures and have spent millions of dollars in generating their SOPs and scientific background to do this. Nevada has often been referred to as the gold standard in testing and the gold standard in cannabis. It took us a long time to get here, and to require the labs to follow 6,900 pages of contradictory regulations that contradict our current testing procedures and operations is, in my opinion, less effective and not needed. Again, we want you guys to have the authority. That's what we're requesting. Give yourselves the authority. All right, section 62 sub 4 talks about how the safety program referenced, and this is just another example of a specific, I'm trying to give you an example of a specific reference. Like when you actually look at the language of the safety program, it's unworkable. The guidance is 52 pages for a safety program, but it gives no standard for what a lab must actually do. A good example of this in that regulation, if you read the 52 pages, it requires, for instance, a designated chemical hygiene officer, right? And so why would the labs need a designated chemical hygiene officer, and there's no regulations or anything that even says what that person is to do or anything about it? It's just one example of one publication that's a problem. A proposed language rewrite would be to sub 4 would be a cannabis independent testing laboratory may use laboratory safety and guidance as identified in section 62 of this regulation as a reference when developing and implementing a laboratory safety program. The listing or use of that publication does not by itself require the laboratory to adopt any specific guideline, procedure, or practice unless required by another provision of this chapter. It's just another example of how we could work to get that solved. I could sit up here and talk for another hour, but I know you guys don't want to hear me talk for another hour. I think that and I do want to say this, by the way, it has been great to work with staff. They've done a really good job. Compliment to Kara and Mike and Rachel and everyone we've worked with, because it's obviously a very hard topic. It's a very hard subject to try to regulate cannabis here in the state. And so, and especially the testing aspect of it is very difficult. We understand that as an industry. But everybody did a great job, especially fixing section 71, section 72. We appreciate those changes and putting some scientific guidelines in that actually allow us to have like limits of detection, for instance, that was applied, right? And so that was very important, and we appreciate the help with that. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has about the lab, the brief, the contradictions. I can go into the other issues, but I think those are some of the biggest issues. I will say one more thing that was brought out, which is section 74 sub 3. There's a point in here that as drafted, the provision makes a cultivation facility, production facility, or laboratory responsible for all costs of a board requested investigative testing, even if no violation was discovered. So in this instance, if a laboratory is required, if the CCB requires another lab to test their product saying there was something wrong, but then there's no fault found, that lab still has to pay for the testing, would request that be modified to limit cost shifting to findings based allocation or a written basis and appeal right where no wrongdoing is identified. I think to punish people when there was no wrongdoing, to fine them would be inappropriate under our laws and under our Constitution. With that, I will answer any questions the board has. I know that was a lot. And I have a lot more. I can keep talking if you want me to keep talking.
Any questions?
If you don't mind, I'll make a really quick statement on this. Obviously, we don't agree with 90% of what he says. We believe 62 is really clear when it says, which must be complied with only as required by the specific regulation with these different standards. Also, the reason we don't list to the standard with a year on it is because at the end of 62, we have a procedure that allows us to update to a newer standard if we wish to. again, it's not forced on us. We would have to have we would workshop it and agree if the standard applies, and we would create a list when these are in place. We'll create a list on our website saying exactly what standards are applied. So in the future, anything that gets included will be on that list. Other than that, do you have any questions? We have our head of our lab team here as well. They can answer anything you need to answer.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you for your comments.
Yeah, so I guess my position would be I understand the language in Section 62, but when you look at 66, it specifically states each cannabis testing laboratory must adhere to the following publications adopted by reference in 62 of this regulation.
And again, it refers right back to 62, which says specifically by regulation. So that's our counter to that.
And so if the board is of the opinion, again, this is all on the record, so there can be no dispute later on, right? Me and Director Miles talked about this, right? So if the board's position and the legal response is, hey, we're putting all these 36 standards out, 6,900 pages, and labs, you don't have to follow them unless we specifically tell you the standard you have to follow, and that's going to be the position, even though it may say different from a legal perspective, right? And remember, I want to be very clear on the record here today that we believe that as drafted, that the language as drafted requires labs to follow all these standards. So if the position that the board is going to take and that a court will take and that everyone's going to take is that we don't have to follow the standards unless you pass a regulation that says then you have to follow them. And again, that goes back to my argument, by the way, of you guys should push back on the LCB and say you guys have the ability to instate these regulations and make people follow them or not. Like, I don't understand why the LCB keeps pushing back on that issue with you guys. So I honestly think you guys should push back on that issue. I think it's important.
But again, it's important to point out that this is his legal opinion on that issue, not everybody else's.
It's the legal opinion of the labs and their lawyers. I want to be clear on that, right? So okay. The labs have their own independent lawyers who've evaluated this. We have scientific directors. We have a lot of people that have looked at this. So I want to be clear that it's not Adam Fulton's opinion.
All right. Thank you. Right. Much appreciated. Any other public comment? Okay. This time I will turn it over to the board. Any questions or comments?
Member Durrett, I have questions. Director Miles, is what Adam's saying correct, that the board's position or the agency's position is that these materials are incorporated by reference, but that doesn't mean every word of them applies, because they can't, because they contradict each other, and some of them haven't even been read, frankly. But they apply only as specific terms in them or specific provisions are referenced. And I think Kara had said that as well. Is that correct?
Agreed.
Okay. Oh, that really clears up that when Kara said that eased my mind, and I think that's great to clear that up on the record. And because when you do incorporate them by reference, it is we would create a mess down the road if we had a disciplinary action, nobody knows what's actually valid and what's not. Okay, so I think that's great. I have one other question. The Section 69, subsection 3, the 20 grams versus 10 grams, can you remind me, and thank you for all the reminders on which provisions we're looking at, because this is so confusing. Remind me, where did the 20 grams come from? Was that from a statute? Why would we change that now? And I know we haven't already voted to approve that 20 grams, but where does the 20 grams coming from versus the 10?
It's a more representative sample of the 5-pound lot sizes is what it was. That's why we worked on our lab team, and our health and safety team pushed on increasing that back in 23 to 24. And that's why it's there.
Okay, so that's an agency proposal, that hasn't been decided by the legislature or the board yet, right?
Correct.
Okay, so I guess, Chair, I just have one assertion, I guess. Is now a good time?
Go ahead.
Okay, I would request that when the motion is made for the adoption of regulations, that we amend that 20 to 10. I know the labs won't appreciate that, but I don't think we should change it until the changes from SB 157 have been adopted, because as I think Amanda said, and probably Lake mentioned, that would cause them to have to change their sample protocols, their testing protocols just temporarily. And that's just, I know it's a very it's very thought out, and that Kara knows these issues very well. I'm assuming that she was in support of that. But there's no mandate to make it 20 right now. I don't think we should fluctuate on that, and we should wait until we get to the legislative mandated SB 157 to deal with testing, lot size, sample size. One more thing about that. It's been 10 grams since I've been doing this for the last 12 years. We don't need it to be 20 grams for the next 2 to 10 months. We are scientifically and public health wise, we are okay. We will be safe if it remains 10 grams as it was for the last 12 years for the next 2 to 12 months. But that's my only request, is that we interlineate that, change it from 20 to 10, not hold these up. And I profusely thank staff and industry for working together endlessly on these. I can see why, when I used to be the one flagging issues and requesting changes, everybody who even these changes impacted, a lot of them just ignored me, because this is so much work, and you have to have all this work like memorized. You have to have all these regulations memorized and all the changes memorized. So thank you to everybody who worked so hard on this, and I would only request that we change it from 20 to 10 and deal with that when the next set comes. Thank you.
My only statement of that is I think it's extremely optimistic that a change is going to happen in the next 2 to 12 months. It is right now what we submitted on SB 157 is included in a 20-gram testing size sample, along with an overall 60-gram pull, because that's what it says in the standard. However, I've already been informed that this is probably going to come up in the session again, in the 27 session. So 2 to 12 months is really optimistic of when a 20-gram sample size may be implemented.
Well, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it is going to be longer, but again, we've had that for 12 years. And I just don't think we need to temporarily change it when we have the legislature's already weighed in. They may weigh in again. We haven't adopted the changes they already made. So it's just us saying, like, yeah, we want you to change this temporarily, despite the legislature changing it just because we decided you should. And I mean, again, scientifically, public health wise, we've had that for 12 years. And I don't see evidence that anybody's been made sick or there's been any public health problems based on a 10-gram sample versus a 20-gram sample. For a 5-pound lot, we are extremely restrictive on testing in Nevada. We're one of the few states with 5-pound lot sizes. I feel good about our testing, and so I would feel very comfortable sticking with 10 until the legislative changes have taken effect.
I'll just point out and argue for our lab team. They did not just randomly pull a 20-gram testing size sample. They thought it out. They looked at other states. They understand. They think that 10-gram is, again, a underrepresented sample of a 5-pound lot size. Is why they wanted to increase it to a 20-gram. And it also assists with, you're going to have to help me with this one, the testing of various microbials and other issues.
So, Director, I'm sorry, I did not at all say that they randomly picked it. I'm saying that we would be saying, despite the legislative mandate to make changes on the lot size, we're going to say what we want instead. I was very clear that I think Kara is very diligent and dedicated and very knowledgeable. So I want to make that very clear. I don't think it's random or not well thought out. I think what would be a bit capricious would be saying, despite the legislature having already weighed in on this and us not needing to weigh in on it now, there being no mandate on us to change it right now, we're going to go ahead and do that. That's what I'm saying. I'm not at all critiquing the thought that went into it. Again, we've had this for 12 years, and there's no showing to me that public safety or that public health has been has been impacted in any way by it being 10 versus 20.
And thank you for that. I appreciate it. But
Member Rath, if I could make a quick comment, I would be in support of the 20 because I think they're going to have to go there anyway. And it could be some time, like Director Miles said, before we get it all put together from SB 157. So I would support the 20 and going ahead and adopting. It's my comments. Oh, and
can I ask a question?
Staff. Just a quick question for lab staff. If there's any confusion on these new regulations, I understand you do work with industry to help them get things cleared up. Is that correct?
Member Rath, members of the board, yes, we do work frequently with, this is Lynette Kogler, Laboratory Compliance Supervisor with the CCB for the record. We do work with the labs routinely on clarifying compliance issues, regulatory issues. So we are available at all times to assist them with compliance and to answer any questions they have.
And then one more last quick question. How does the 20 grams increase the accuracy of the testing results? If you could just address that, and that's my last question.
Thank you. I appreciate you asking that question. Just to clarify what's already been stated, the increase in sample size from 10 to 20 grams in Section 69, it's not related to anything in SB 157. The increase in sample size, I need to point out that in item 4 in Section 69, we've clarified the language to explain that a minimum of 1 gram of sample must be used for each microbial test. The previous wording used the word any, which was somewhat ambiguous. So with each microbial test requiring 1 gram of sample, we've increased from 10 to 20 grams to ensure that the laboratories have enough sample for all of the chemical and microbial tests combined. That's the reason for the increase in 20 grams, to make sure that they have all of the sample necessary.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Because it's in follow-up to what I was already asking. Member Durrett, for the record.
Make sure you give your name first.
Yeah, Member Durrett.
Okay.
When it goes to, Member Rath mentioned that it's going to be increased to 20 grams, but would that be for a 5-pound lot size, or would that be for a larger lot size? I know it's going to go, there's also the 60 grams. So under SB 157, is it 20 grams for a 5-pound lot size?
Lynette Kogler, for the record. SB 157 and the standard that was adopted in SB 157, that standard requires that a composite sample of 60 grams is collected. However, in testing, that sample is going to be divided into 3 20-gram portions. That 20 grams will be used for that initial compliance testing, and then the other 2 20-gram portions are available for retesting either within or outside the laboratory. So the laboratory will still be using 20 grams for testing. They will just have to take a larger sample size when they collect under the provisions of SB 157. I hope that answers.
But you are correct that it would be a 15-pound lot size for that.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Just the only question I have is what was brought up, the impact of the cost. What is the impact of the cost from going from 10 to 20? It was brought up earlier.
Lynette Kogler, for the record. I don't have an estimate entirely of the costs. The labs will have to use somewhat larger sample collection portion sizes, and granted, the facilities will have to part with a little more of their sample, but 10 grams, say, of flour is actually not a lot. It will fit in a small Tupperware container. So it's roughly twice that.
And I believed it was discussed during sessions that it would be like maybe maybe a penny or so a gram, if I'm remembering correctly. I could be remembering incorrectly. So,
Amanda Connor, for the record, if I can jump in, I don't have exact numbers, but the sample size is doubling, right? So they're losing double that amount in flower. But the bigger concern of the industry is it's anticipated that the testing costs will increase because of the larger sample size. You're doubling the sample size for the same lot size. So they're losing more flower with each 5-pound lot, whereas in SB 157, it was contemplated to be a lot of 15 pounds to go to arguably a 20-gram sample. So by taking more to test the same amount, it is a impact, and testing is already a big cost to the cultivators. So increasing that testing cost will have an impact in an industry that's already struggling. Thank you.
Member Durant, for the record, wasn't there a business impact statement on this, or was that on the, is that on something else?
there was. This was back in 24, and I think it's on the website for the first. Oh. Everybody knows who I am at this point. Executive Director Miles, for the record. Yes, there is a business impact statement on this. I believe it was done back in 2024, and it would be under the workshops, and I believe it would be. Did we have it under the first round of voting on this? But yes, there is one, and it has been done.
Member Durant, for the record. So I mean, there has been information solicited and provided about the costs.
Thank you.
If I can jump back in, since we're allowing people to jump in, real quick, a minimum. Adam Fulton on behalf of the labs again. Yeah, sorry, Adam Fulton on behalf of the labs. The minimum 20 grand sample, and we've had this discussion for 6 years, and literally 6 years. And so a minimum 20 gram sample from a 5-pound cannabis flower lot should be maintained because it is the lowest defensible testing portion needed to preserve representative, reproducible, and legally supportable laboratory results. When we have a 20 gram portion of the 5-pound, it represents 0.88% of that lot. And if you look at the brief that's been provided and all the information that's been provided previously, it's the only site, like there's no question that it's scientifically viable. 20 grams from a 5-pound lot size is scientifically supportable. There's not really any question at this point about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Question for the lab. Would 15 be a good compromise?
Lynette Kogler, for the record. Given the provision for every lab having to do the 1 gram of their microbial testing, off the top of my head, I can't say if that will be adequate. However, this regulation does establish a minimum. So as a minimum, 15 would probably be acceptable, but it should be noted that if the laboratory needs to collect additional material for a test, 20 grams, maybe more than 20 grams, the regulation also allows for that.
Any other comments? Trying to put this to bed. Okay. I will start it off then and then open up for discussion. I move to adopt the regulations as contained in LCB file number R152-24/RP1 with the amendment for section 69, section 3, usable sample being changed to 15 grams from the 20 grams as outlined.
Member Rath, I'll second.
Emily Bordelove, Senior Deputy Attorney General, Counsel for CCB. Just make one note. Like, one of my concerns would be changing that as far as LCB is concerned, if that's considered a substantive change because of where we are in the process.
Push back.
I'm not trying to.
This is Deputy Director, or Deputy, I keep saying Deputy. Executive Director Miles, I agree. I don't think LCB is going to care one way or another if it's 10, 15, or 20.
Just wanted to confirm just because of how long this was.
Okay.
It's still testing size samples.
Okay.
I don't think they're going to care. I'm open to anybody else who has different opinions on that, but I honestly don't think they're going to care one way or the other.
I'm not advocating for one way or the other. I'm just noting that concern.
Yeah.
Right. But, okay, it's been first and second. Further questions or discussions before I take to a vote?
Member Mazzarano would question, if you don't think LCB would care whether it was 10, 15, or 20, why not leave it at 10?
Matthew Feely, Senior Deputy Attorney General, representing the board. They may not care over the actual numbers because they don't know as much about the testing procedures, but they care that it's a substantive change. As far as the procedure goes, it does look like it's still going to be a substantive change, which is kind of what they do care about when it comes to passing these regulations.
Member Rath, I would be concerned if there would be a significant delay by making the change. What indications do we have that, you know, if we change the 20 to 15, what kind of a delay are we looking at?
Well,
I mean, I believe it would delay all of this, like the entire everything would then be delayed simply because we're not changing this.
Emily Bordelove, the other Senior Deputy Attorney General, for our concern from his counsel is the fact that in November, when you voted and then held back Chapter 11, LCB pushed back and said that the file had to remain as one file and couldn't be held. So that's where this is also coming from, is if there's a change on the, even though it's going 20 to 15, it's still substantively a change, as there's been discussed. We've had quite a few stakeholders. So unfortunately, LCB is not here to opine whether they would consider that a substantive change, but our concern would be that the vote would then delay.
Yeah, these numbers have already been discussed in previous meetings or workshops or whatever, right? The number of 20 has already been decided and been sent to them. All that's being sent back now is the changes that they've made to this, right? And I guess that's kind of a question.
Correct, but I want to stress on that industry has never agreed one way or another on the 20 grams.
Correct. They never agreed,
submitted.
even in the last meetings. Nonetheless, the number was sent to LCB, and that number was the number that's before you today. So this number has already been debated.
Correct.
And has been sent back, and this is simply just the LCB's changes and whether or not we're going to adopt those. The LCB didn't change this number from 10 to 20, did they? No, that was the number that we presented to them. And so we've already, even despite arguments amongst different parties, have already submitted this number. It seems kind of late at this moment for us to go back to LCB and change it.
Excuse me, Member Durrett, for the record, this is the first opportunity the board, when it comes to the board, we don't weigh in at the workshops. I watched the workshops, but we don't get to make changes then. When we request changes, they're not necessarily made. The board matters, okay? We get to make decisions, okay? Otherwise, it's an up or down, yes or no vote. And that's what you're telling us right now, is we can only vote yes or no. We can also make changes, okay? And so I am okay with holding them up if it means our hands are tied. If our hands are tied and we can only have a yes or no vote, then it's going to be really hard to get regs passed. So I would submit that you should make our change.
The problem with this one is because we are so late in the process. This has to be submitted and approved by, I think it was June 20 something. And if it's not, then it gets kicked over into the next cycle, which means it could be another year or two before these regs come back in front of us and we can vote on them again and move forward. It's the APA process now. It's not our process. We don't have the same control. I agree with you wholeheartedly, Vice Chair Durrett. Your opinion matters. Your change matters. It's just these regs have had multiple votes multiple times in front, and now we're literally at the end of a time frame session. That's the only reason why this would be a yes or a no vote. And I understand what you're saying, Deputy Attorney General Feely. If you guys think that way, then maybe we should just leave it at the 20 gram.
Yeah, no, and I agree.
I did not consider it that way when I was thinking about it. So you're correct.
I apologize. I didn't want to sound like I was arguing one way or another for a specific number, and I didn't want to like, step on any board members' toes or anything. The reason I came up to the panel right now here is just to state that it appears to me that would be a substantive change that would alter the process. So whether or not you want to change the number or not, it isn't what I'm saying here. I'm just saying that making a motion with an amendment such as that may not go over well with the LCB.
Well, sorry, I'm going to Board of Love, counsel for CCB. For the record, this would put us beyond the 2 years contemplated by statute. So the concern is that you would have the amendment, and then my understanding is that CCB has been informed by LCB that there would be a new R number attached, and we would want to avoid any issues with trying to get this passed. So this is, we're solely talking about procedure here.
Correct. And again, this would end up getting lumped in with the changes we just submitted for the 25 session. And again, the vote on these regs get even bigger, and there's more changes. I understand if for some reason you believe that 20 grams is so outside the zone that it has to get kicked. But again, I understand all these regs will get kicked. They still will not be in place. And right now they won't be in place still for another, 6 months, 8 months to a year anyway, because it still has to go in front of the Ledge Commission. It just continues the process. And again, it could be years before we get these approved.
Member Rath, for the record, I am concerned about the delay issue. I understand it's worthwhile discussing 15 as a compromise, but if it's going to delay things, I would withdraw my second on the motion.
Or we can amend and go to the 20.
Member Durrett, can I add something before the motion is remade? I wonder if there is, what we could do is move it along, and I've fully made my record about that issue. I wonder if the Legislative Commission can change it, and they'll have LCB there at the hearing, so it won't be a problem for them.
I assume that they can. Again, remember, this is our first time through this process under the APA. I would say Deputy Director Gilbert may have some experience with this, but again, for him, it's probably 8 or 9 years since he's went through this process as well. So I believe they can change it with LCB there.
Well, Member Durrett, then I would offer that I would be willing to support it with the 20, with that record fully being made, that I don't support the 20, but that I would give the opportunity to whoever agrees with me, raise that with the Legislative Commission so that we don't hold it up.
Member Mazzarano would agree that we don't want to lose all these positive regulations over maybe one regulation. So I would agree with Vice Chair.
Copy all. And
Member Rath, I also agree. And I do think that 20 is going to be more accurate as far as the testing results regardless. So I would support a new motion.
Yeah, I amended it to 20. So my motion.
Could you repeat it?
Yes. So I will, yeah. It was about 3 hours ago. Okay. So
I think it'd just be a straight.
I move to adopt the regulations as contained in LCB file number R152-24.
Member Rath, second.
Okay, it's been moved in second that we adopt the motion. Any questions or further discussion? And also have on the record the Vice Chair's comments. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? All right. Motion passes. Okay. All right.
Again, these are our first regs passed through the APA process, at least to this point.
So we'll go to the briefing from, I guess I'll start off for the briefings from the chair and the executive director. First of all, I appreciate everybody's comments, and we kind of knew that this would be an area that, especially for the industry, that there were some concerns, and we do take your comments extremely serious, and we have to ask ourselves, where we can be better to ensure that we get the whole voice and we do what's in the best interest of all sides. And so take very serious the comments that were brought up. And it does, this is just for me, it does anything that is going to have an implication or impact on cost or the inability to, drive your business. And especially in these days and times, I think we have to really, really listen to that. So just know that we have heard, and hopefully we have a mechanism, our way to look further into this. That's coming from me as the chair. The second thing I'll just throw out real quick is I just appreciate the ability to go to the conference last week of the Cannabis Regulation Association to kind of hear what's going on around the nation in the industry, and some of the good practices, and also some of the challenges that are out there. And I think discussion and debate is really, really good. But I will say, and I was very impressed with what we do here in Nevada. Someone said earlier, I think Mr. Fulton, that somebody said it was the gold standard, or in terms of what we do here. And we do a lot of good work here. Doesn't mean it's always going to be easy. Doesn't mean that everybody's going to be on the same page. But what is always just a rubber stamp of everything we do, that's also a miss. So I'm hopeful for what we will have the ability to do in the future. I still think Director, that we still have one of the best staffs out there, even though a couple of them might kick me today, but I can take that. But definitely appreciate all that y'all do and the advice that you give. Just for me, the reminder is that we have meetings every other month now versus each month. I'll just keep putting that out there. We've definitely gives us an opportunity to, in between, to look at and to scrutinize and look even more closely. But that's just a reminder. Thank you to all the board for what you do and your subject matter expertise and what you bring to the table. In these days and times, I'm hopeful that we do as much as we can to make sure this is great for the state of Nevada and for all the sides that work for CCB, but also for the side that is out there every day, making sure that they have good regulated businesses are able to go forward and be prosperous. So that's all I have. And I'll turn it over to our director.
I'd like to do that again. Like I say in every workshop, we can't do our job without you guys coming in and give us your comment and your opinion and your input on these regulations. It's absolutely appreciated every single time. Even if we don't agree, it's absolutely appreciated every single time. And I think this is a huge chunk of regs that we worked through the first process. And I truly believe, I think we all worked out 98% of the issues throughout these regs. I really honestly believe the only main issue in that reg was the testing size sample. And that's huge because, again, this was 150 some pages of regs. Again, I really appreciate everybody's input. Not to confuse the issue any further, but I'm gonna. The Nevada Cannabis Compliance Regulations, the NCCRs, have finally switched over to the Nevada Administrative Code, the NACs. You will notice references to NAC as the CCB makes the transition on its website, partner portals, and agency documentation. The change is in result of the 23 legislative session with the assistance from the Legislative Council Bureau. NAC 678A through D are available now. The constant contact will be distributed after this meeting with a link, and it will be updated on the website soon. The CCB will provide a conversion document if anybody wants, showing what the NCCR, the old NCCRs compared to what the new NECs are. The topic will be covered during the upcoming resource fair in Reno and in the metric training upcoming, I think, the end of this month. Archive records of the NCCRs will be housed on the CCB's website. Again, please understand that these NACs are supposed to be directly the NCCRs that are on the website right now. There's going to be some minor changes that the LCB made, but in general, what's on the NCCRs right now should be in the NACs. We reviewed as well. We found some minor changes, but I think nothing that was substantive. If you find something different, please get a hold of me. Again, please begin to make the transition out in your facility and your offices. CCB anticipates CCB anticipates transitioning fully by August 1, 2026. And again, that means on the SODs, everything else will be listed NACs instead of the NCCRs. If there's some pending disciplinary actions, we still will be using the NCCRs for those disciplinary actions that happen prior to the NACs coming into account. Again, for those of you in the north, the CCB is hosting a resource fair on Tuesday, June 23rd from 9 a.m. to noon. Local jurisdictions and CCB staff will be on hand to answer your questions directly. Department of Taxation will also walk you through the new cannabis tax permit process. Please email jbutler@ccb.nv.gov for a link to register. And again, we look forward to seeing many of you there. All right, I guess the resource fair will be on Wednesday, June 23rd, not Tuesday, June 23rd. Is it June 24th? Is it the resource fair? Because I have it listed at the 23rd, so. Wednesday. All right, yeah, so it's Wednesday, June 24th. I also have a brief update on the federal rescheduling. As previously reported to this board, the Department of Justice's April 2026 final order placed FDA approval and state licensed medical marijuana into Schedule 3, while recreational cannabis remains Schedule 1 and subject to the 280E restrictions. There are only two developments that may affect that landscape. First, the final order is under active challenge in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit, where petitioners have filed a motion asking the court to stay the order. If a stay were granted, the federal landscape could shift again, including a potential return of medical marijuana to Schedule 1 and the restoration of Section 280E liability. Second, the Drug Enforcement Administration is scheduled to convene an expedited administrative hearing beginning June 29th, 2026, to consider whether marijuana more broadly, including adult use recreational, should be moved to Schedule 3. That hearing is set to conclude no later than July 15th. Again, I think they're being really optimistic on that one. Finally, the board reminds licensees that the DEA's expedited registration window closes soon. Based on staff's current understanding, licensees may still apply after the date, but would no longer receive expedited review. It should also be noted that although the DA's registration website references dispensaries, it is staff's understanding that the registration process is open to all license types. However, the board is aware of anecdotal reports of applications for other license types being rejected, and it is monitoring the issue. Licensees with questions about eligibility of timing should consult qualified counsel. The board will continue to monitor both the litigation and the hearing. Licensees are encouraged to consult qualified legal and tax counsel before making business decisions based on the federal order, and to continue meeting all Nevada state licensing and compliance obligations in the meantime. Every state is having these issues. We were just at Canada. No guidelines have been issued by the DEA or the IRS. So again, once we hear something, we'll get it out to you as soon as we can. But again, keep seeking advice from your counsel. And also just repeating what Chair Barry stated, our next board meeting will be in August, not in July. That's all I have.
August 20th. All right, thank you. All right, any items for future discussion? Please don't say regulations. Okay, all right, thank you. All right, thank you. All right, I'll open it up for public comment up north.
No public comment in the north.
All right, thank you. Any public comment down south?
Sorry, good morning. For the record, Timothy Aliato speaking, representing Cora Cannabis Consumption Lounge. Yeah, just wanted to express my deepest condolence to Michael Covington. I recently heard about his passing, and just wanted to state that his energy is greatly missed. And also, just wanted to appeal to the board that we're currently still within Colorado Cannabis Launch dealing with some unfortunate internal issues as well. And also health problems. I have a deadline soon approach that I just received an email for. And I'm just seeking for a little bit of time to be able to navigate it. So thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Any other comments in South? Seeing none, we will adjourn the meeting of the CCB on June 18th, 2026. Thank you.